Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are here to do our review of the penultimate episode of the Chucky TV series, episode 7 of 8. And so, yes, the second to last episode where things kind of do kick into gear a little bit more so than they have. Like, I'll talk about it as we talk about it, but Mancini paced this show out pretty darn well. I gotta be honest with you. So, let's get into the overall thoughts as we go along. Fuego, you know how we do our reviews, and everyone else does by this point as well. Guys, we will be spoiling aspects of the episode. It's hard to talk about a TV show on a week-to-week basis without spoiling it. So now, Fuego, we didn't get your opinion on episode 6, so do you want to do a quick recount of what your thoughts on episode 6 were?
Yeah, Cape Queer was interesting. It was nice to finally get...
That was the name of the episode, guys. I did not... That's not Fuego just trying to be clever or whatever. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, Mancini finally brought back the two characters that I was probably the most excited to see, obviously, because Child's Play 2 is the standout in the whole franchise in my estimation. And so, you know, we had Kyle's return tease. We got a lot more from, you know, Andy in the previous film, being Colt and everything, Colt of Chucky. But I thought it was okay. It wasn't quite as fulfilling, at least as far as what they did with those characters. But I was impressed with the emotional impact of, like, what happened with Devin and his mother.
We lost two moms that episode.
Two moms in that one. Yeah, double down in that regard. And the dealing with the cancer of Junior's mother and the way Chucky made it seem like she committed suicide and everything. It's like, okay, that's at least clever enough on his part. But you know how I've been raving about the flashback stuff? This was the first time in a few episodes where it's just like, okay, the flashback stuff with more of Brad's daughter playing him again. With them killing the car salesman and stuff, I was just like, this feels like we are back to throwaway flashbacks that have really no purpose in everything. But I thought all the stuff with the kids was good, and with how things are getting a little frictiony amongst them, and you can tell Junior you could tell where Junior was going. And I think when you and I talked about episode 5, I predicted it. You know, about Chucky being a proverbial puppet master of sorts with a new protege, and so we'll get to that in this.
The puppet becomes the master.
Exactly, role reversal in that regard. So yeah, I thought it was a strong enough episode, but yeah, I was a little bit more disappointed with. I guess it was just the burden of expectation, as I always bitch about on this show. You know, the fact that I thought the stuff with the kids hooking up with, you know, Kyle and with Andy was going to be a little bit more fulfilling than it actually was. It wasn't bad, but it was just a little more ho-hum and kind of convenient too, you know, with the way that they're able to do it. They're just like, oh, we'll just reach out and contact them, you know. So not a bad episode, but, you know, maintaining there's still, in my estimation, has not been a weak link as far as any particular episode. There's episodes that have been stronger than others, but there's no like blaring sore thumb sort of thing. So.
All right, so let's jump into episode 7, of course. Now, how did you think that it did regarding... Well, you just talked about 6. I'll go ahead and give my overall thoughts on 7.
Please do.
I enjoyed this episode. I thought the stakes were raised once again. I kind of like how the storylines are being melded together, you know? I think that's what I was alluding to when I mentioned the pacing. I think Mancini paced out the season pretty well, where... The first 4 episodes were all about the kids, so we could get to know them and get into them and whatnot. And then it's colliding with the cult storyline, and I think it's actually working together pretty harmoniously. I think that certain things are being pushed a little bit harder than other things, but it's overall still an impressively designed season overall. And I did like this episode. Again, I feel like the stakes were raised going into the finale. I'm very curious what they're gonna do, because I am curious. They added a new bit to the lore this episode, and we don't know what it means necessarily just yet. So that was the most exciting thing to me. I was like, what does this mean? So I'm dying to know what that means and how it ties into this new group of good guy dolls that apparently there's an army of Chuckies now. So there's a lot to dig into with this episode, and I dig when they give us a lot more to chew on. You know what I mean? This was a very lore-heavy episode, and I'm about that. I'm definitely about that. So I liked this episode quite a bit. What about you, Fuego?
Yeah, I did. I did. And I'm like you, waiting in anticipation so why did Chucky have to manipulate a child into committing murder? Because there's some sort of voodoo lore tied in with it, because
Exactly.
you know, he most definitely has like a grand master plan, and there were times where I wasn't so certain, but you know, it's become much more apparent as we're approaching this final episode of this season. We still haven't found out if there will be a second one or not. I would imagine there will be.
With the
success
ratings,
of
yeah.
The ratings have been very good amongst both of those channels, and so and I also like the way they have given like a pretty major arc to the stuff with Devin and Jake, you know, and the fact that it's not like
Devin done died twice.
yeah, most def, man. And so just the fact that there is friction between the two of them, I feel like the writing of Lexi has become a little less interesting as they backscaled on her bitchiness. Now I'm kind of like, meh, whatever. No, I don't care as much. But everything they're doing with Junior and his torturedness, and also with his father, and after the death of Bree, the mom, in the previous episode, and how he sunk into this alcoholism just like his brother, you know, and the depressive aspect of all of that. So I thought that was a very compelling little segment, and especially with how they go about that death at the end. Not to
Let's
spoil
you know what? No,
specifically.
let's just jump into it because that, quite frankly,
I thought it was pretty prolific and profound.
It's yeah, I would go with profound for sure, because it's the first time in, well, let's see, there were 6 Chucky movies before this, right? Or no, 7 Chucky movies before this, and then another now 6 episodes at 45 minutes is going to put you at about 4.5 hours.
Yeah, so it's the equivalent of 3 more movies,
right,
more or less.
Right. So in all of that time, we've never seen anyone use Chucky as the instrument of death. And so that was really interesting to me. And seeing Chucky's face going, ah, like really enjoying the process was like, that is the creator being creative with his own property in a completely new way that like makes complete sense, where you're like, how has this not happened yet in some way, shape, or form? So I really, really dug that bit. What about you?
Oh, I did, and it really put an exclamation point on the end of the episode and the turn of this particular character. You're just like, you're off the deep end. There's not a redeemableness to you at this point, I don't think. So, yeah, that was good. But once again, I have to say, the flashbacks again in this just did not do much of anything for me, where they buy the apartment in Chicago and they're arguing about pizza, and they're still doing the bad voiceover for both of them. That just doesn't really, although I guess it was a little bit interesting that they returned to the subject of how those two have had this constant conflict throughout their entire relationship. She's like, I thought killing was what we did together, Chucky, and all that. So I thought that was at least a little bit better than the flashbacks in the previous episode, but it still didn't really add anything new to the mix, I don't think. So
no, I agree. The flashbacks, and they felt even like this time they like added this weird musical sting or some like thing that was like transitioning into the flashbacks, and it was like really jarring. I'm like, you guys cannot figure out how you want to transition to these flashbacks, because it's different every time. It's out of place so many times, and like the flashbacks, like you said, sometimes they don't even serve a damn purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and just with you mentioning music really quick though, I have to ask you if you enjoy the constant use of that Go-Go song or not, because they do it again in this episode.
So we got the beat thing?
Yeah. Hasn't it been in at least an episode or two
that
before?
made no sense. Why would this freaking sub-millennial suddenly start singing "We Got the Beat" after killing his dad? No, that wouldn't happen. No, that's forced as fuck.
Oh, it's about the equivalent of something that Stephen King still does at this point, because he's in his 70s, where he writes these children who are into like 40s, 50s monster movies, and I'm like, kids today aren't into, you know, those old Universal Monsters films, dude. Sorry, just because you were, you know. So yeah, it definitely felt forced, and the fact that they've gone back to it at this point too, and hearing Brad Dourif try to kind of sing along with Junior, it was cringy, man.
Yeah, I agree. That bit was a bit cringy. But, again, the whole implication that Chucky this whole time just needed one of the kids to kill voluntarily for whatever reason as a part of an overall spell or whatever, it's really interesting. And I'm definitely raring to see where that goes. But as far as the rest of the episode goes, this episode had the forced conflict between Jake and his boyfriend because his boyfriend's mom is dead now as a result of everything, and he's like, I'm just better off without you. Like, I'm safer, and like, I'm done. Jake, we're done. Jake, back off, Jake. So like that was, I'm like, okay, good. Like, I don't want to have to deal with that subplot anymore. But ultimately, it did feel a little out of place after him pining for Jake the entire time. And him obviously knowing that Jake has no control over this fucking possessed doll. So why would he suddenly say, Jake, we're done? So
Yeah,
that all felt really forced to me. What about you?
I'm not too far off, because Devin has kind of been portrayed as this very virtuous character throughout, and he knew what the score was with Jake, you know, and how he was from a troubled situation already. I mean, I guess everybody does have their breaking point, presumably, as far as how much shit you will deal with in a relationship, you know, before you have to, you know, pull the plug finally, as tough as that may be. But yeah, what I felt didn't work as much was Andy leaving Kyle at that particular bit.
Yeah, that's fucking random too.
I was just like, why do you feel like you need to go this alone?
We haven't seen them enough to justify that decision.
Not at all. And yet you are at least given the impression that they've been doing this sort of going all over the place trying to kill the rest.
They said that they thought that last one was the last soul. You know, and clearly they were already wrong, which I mentioned in the last review that I did. Yeah. You know, that was surprising. I'm like, if that's the last soul, it doesn't make sense that they don't know about this other Chucky if they thought that was the last piece of his soul or whatever. So
yeah, and also I didn't really like their banter very much, like the arguing about the cigarettes, and I mean, I felt like the delivery from each of them was a little more wooden, and so maybe that's just kind of a knock on the fact that those two probably don't act very much anymore.
Honestly, I didn't feel that they were wooden. Honestly, I actually quite liked what Christina Elise did. I thought Kyle felt like fucking Kyle the whole way through. Yeah. I quite liked her. Andy,
the big sister babysitter.
Yeah, I like that.
She still coddles him like that.
Yeah, and when he takes off, she's even like, Andy, god damn it, like. I like that. I think honestly, Christina's killing it. I gave her props in the last episode too. She's killing it as Kyle. Like, I love that she's getting a chance to shine again. Honestly, I think it's the screenwriting here that's muddying the waters. I think Andy's doing his duty too. Like, I like what Andy's doing, but Andy is just developing on the storyline that Dawn has given him over the course of the last couple of movies.
I just wanted more from them, I think, and additional development. Yeah. And, you know, the beggars can't be choosers in that regard, I suppose.
I feel like we might get that in season 2, right? Like, there's no reason why we can't go back and tell some of the Andy and Kyle stories as they track down those things and get to know each other, right? That would be kind of an interesting, smart way to go about season 2, just as far as flashing, you know. All the best shows deal with flashbacks on a regular basis. Lost, one of the most popular shows of all time, had flashbacks every single episode.
It was their thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no reason you can't ape that every now and again if you do it right. So, what else did we see in this episode, Fuego?
You know, I'm just trying to think of some. There's obviously the subplot of what motivated Junior to think about killing his father. You know, it's the thought that after Tiffany shows up at the funeral, and so this is something that I feel like they've kind of muddied the waters a little bit about, and you can probably clarify this for me, being someone who knows the lore a little bit better. So
yeah,
because she makes the joke about where he's like, I've seen you before, where Junior sees her when she shows up at his house, and she's like, you're not old enough to watch Bound, and of course that made me laugh. But so
she is Jennifer Tilly.
Okay, because Tiffany is in that
in Seed of Chucky. No.
Oh, that's right. Tiffany put herself.
Tiffany
in the
put herself
body of
into
Jennifer
Jennifer Tilly. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
So no,
interesting.
she is Jennifer Tilly. Like she knows it. That's why she's like, even in one of the earlier episodes, she's like, Jennifer, Tiffany, who knows? You know, like I think there was like a line something like that at one point. You know, but
So did you like the usage of her in this episode being almost like the pawn that is?
it's
h-
weird. I
helping
mean, you
Junior
know,
get
yeah,
over-
she shows up, but we never really get clarification on why. Like, what was her relationship with Devin's character? Did we ever get that clarified?
We didn't get anything clarified, and I was wondering.
And he's
if,
dead
you know,
now,
being-
so now we
yeah.
won't, right? Like, there's
Well-
no reason.
Well, and I was wondering if like being the hometown, because there's Logan and Lucas were the names of the two brothers who Devin Sawa was playing, I believe, and so I kind of got the impression that they'd lived in this town for probably their whole lives, and so that was where Chucky grew up, right? Was in that same town. He was
Yeah,
in
Hackensack,
House, which is
uh-huh.
Hackensack, yeah. So, but then again, Tiffany, I don't know. Maybe I'm just overanalyzing this and like pulling its hairs or whatever. But yeah, and they're still doing interesting things with Fiona as like the whole there's two.
Yeah,
different
that was
people
interesting.
in
So
that
wait,
body.
was it this episode where Tiffany figured it out, or was it last
It
episode?
was the previous episode, yeah. So it was the previous one where she was basically like,
she stabbed her in the
she
leg.
actually, I like you better
Yeah,
than Chucky, and she's.
but she was bullshitting clearly. Right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wasn't 100% honestly.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Like
Yeah.
they muddied those waters too.
So who knows if we'll get clarification about that, because she's obviously still aiding Chucky in this big grandiose plan, but could she betray him at the end? or
Wait, so
something?
Chucky
I
didn't
believe-
take back over before the end of the episode? I couldn't remember.
In this episode, he did take back over because remember Devin broke into the house and was like looking around and saw her all tied up in there, and it was
Oh yeah, and she
because the voice
turned
that
to
she was
Chucky.
using,
Yeah,
and she turned back to Chucky and then overtook him, and so that's where we kind of ended.
but
with-
there
with
wasn't
him.
a blow to the head that caused that transition that time, was there?
Not that I remember.
No.
Damn it.
Okay. All right. No, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about the Chucky effects? Again, they've been kind of hit or miss throughout the series, and Cody agreed when we did that bit on his channel that Chucky stabbing that kid looked ridiculous. They haven't gone back to that sort of thing, which is smart.
Yeah.
So, how did you like the effects in this episode?
I didn't think they were too bad. I mean, when he was,
They were good.
he didn't have as much to do in this episode. You
Towards
know?
the end, right?
towards the
He
end,
sits
very much
up and he pulls the knife out of the block, which was. There were actually a few bits from the trailer. It's interesting seeing how much are trickled in from the initial trailer throughout the entire season, because there
Yeah.
were bits in this episode that were in that original trailer.
Yeah, they totally were. But as far as like, he was an instrument of murder as opposed to being the murderer in this, and so there wasn't as much heavy lifting.
No, he
I
was
guess
the
for him
murder
to be
whisperer.
responsible for it. Yeah, exactly. But he didn't have the heavy lifting to do this time. I thought the facial expressions and everything were good enough when he had his bits of discussion with Junior, and most notably where he was talking all that shit glug 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 to his father. I thought that where the transition from happy face to like just the actual scowl of Chucky that we're so used to and everything, where he's like, "Get your fucking hands off me," or whatever he says to his father. I thought that was good and believable and everything. But yeah, I mean, he didn't have to really move around very much in this episode, so I can't really fault anything like we've seen in some of those other ones where we're just like, he looks silly.
So I gotta ask, because
Yeah.
this question just occurred to me, and I might have to think about my answer as well. But like, now that we've gotten, right, we have 7 Chucky movies, or is it 6?
It's 7, yeah, because we had the first 3, and then we had
Bride and
Curse,
Seed, and
Bride
then
and Seed.
Curse and Cult.
Yeah, so we have had 7 as
7,
mentioned.
okay.
Yeah.
So now we have 7 episodes, and we're gonna have 8. So after this, Fuego, what do you want to see? Do you want to see a season 2, or do you want to see him transition back to feature-length films? I know it's
think-
putting you on the spot, but like, it's an
Yeah,
interesting question, right? Now that we see what he can do, I'm like, let's see what season 2 brings. But that means we're not going to get another Chucky movie. But I'm kind of okay with that. Again, 8 episodes at 45 minutes. You're getting 4 new Chucky movies every single season.
I think I would definitely, since they've made the journey over to this shorter form episodic sort of thing, I actually think I would prefer that. Yes, there have been ones that dragged or that I didn't feel were like quite as inspired as other ones, but I mean the fact that they did a big screen reboot at this particular point, I feel like the franchise has made what I would probably say is a permanent migration. So
Really? Okay, you think it's
Yeah.
only going to work as a TV show now?
not that it couldn't work on the screen, but I think when they kind of
When you make that transition, it's going to be tough to transition back.
and that's the point that I'm trying to make, and especially since there are apologists of that remake that neither you nor I liked, and people who want a sequel to that shit. So yeah, I think the separation has been made, and I don't think it's going to be like we can reconcile, that we're separated as opposed to divorced or whatever. And I think it makes a lot more sense too, because people are really much more inclined with the whole binge culture. Now, granted, it's released weekly, but this is the sort of show wherever it ends up, whether it's Peacock, which is what I've seen a lot of people like Squires saying, is that's where you'll be able to watch it on demand like afterwards. Yeah, I think that Chucky is very bingeable. Obviously, this show has been very much enjoyable in that regard. So yeah.
How interesting is that? I mean, I guess we can have this longer discussion after the finale, but how interesting is that such a big slasher series seems to have successfully made that transition from big screen movies to even VOD or straight to video movies that's now transitioned into a very successful TV show. Like, how many other slasher franchises, how many other horror franchises are we going to see try the same thing now? And by the way, allow myself to throw my hat in the ring to run the Nightmare on Elm Street HBO Max series, because goddamn, I have an entire 10-episode series laid out in my head, ready to go, that I could go and pitch HBO tomorrow. Like, I think there are some properties that could really benefit from this kind of treatment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Nightmare would most definitely be one of the most viable, because you could have each one be an episodic anthological sort of thing, or you could do like
That
just
too.
something complete. You could do something.
You could have
completely
two different Nightmare series. You could have a 10-episode series telling the first movie in a much more broken down, interesting fashion, but you could also tell a simultaneous story like what you're talking about, that's like just two different continuities. You know what I mean? Oh God.
Almost like what they're doing with Hellraiser right now, right?
A little bit, yeah,
with
yeah.
that being a feature and then also a corresponding completely separate series. But
Exactly.
yeah,
So
man.
yeah, any other final thoughts on this? Did we cover everything, you think? I mean, the acting continued along. I think everyone has been doing their damnedest. I don't think there was anything really that's changed. Same with the production value and all that stuff. It's maintaining that high quality. So
It's just really Lexi taking a little bit more of a backseat, and since her character was changed up a little bit, with her making peace with Jake and all that different stuff, I thought this was one of those episodes where I didn't have a cringy scene from Jake where he was being goofy or whatever, and I thought the conflict between him and Devin felt genuine, and I felt for Jake. I really did. And even when he like steals the money and just goes off on his own and everything, I guess that scene with him and the guy who had the doll and he's like gonna give him $350 for the friggin' doll, that was a little bit
the delivery guy.
Yeah.
All right, I'll lose my job over $350.
I'm running late for this delivery, and he's like, yeah, well, sell it to me. And he's like, wow, if you're worried about running late, like, how much worse is it if you lose the product or something?
I did think it was funny that he just started beating the doll's ass like against the wall and everything.
Yeah.
But all right, so are you excited about the season finale? Do you think that this is going to reach a satisfying conclusion?
Boy, I'm hoping so. Unfortunately, the episode has been screened for critics, and I caught a peak of a Twitter headline where somebody was saying it kind of limps to the finish line. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping they don't just cock tease us a little bit and they're just like, oh, well, we're not going to resolve much of anything. We're just going to set it all up for a second season.
That's the impression that I kind of got at the end of this episode, where like we might see a couple confrontations, but we're not going to see everything we want to see.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't think they're going to wrap up like both, Kyle or Andy or, because there's so many
or the
subplots
army of Chuckies.
Yeah, there's so many subplots of conflict at this particular point on the show that I don't see them being able to like wrap it up in a nice, neat little package or anything.
Well,
which is probably good, because you need to have an excited audience for a second season if they get it.
We have to ask the question, I mean, we wouldn't be doing our diligence if we didn't. So, Fuego, what do you think it means that Chucky needed to get one of the kids to kill in order to unlock whatever is coming next? What do you think that means? And then I'll give my thoughts.
I mean, really, the only hunch that I have, because I haven't given it like extensive thought. I put the episode on last night and I fell asleep.
Sure,
and finished it today on Thanksgiving. But it has to be something about maybe just upping the extent of power, and like my gut is telling me that he can only spread himself so thin amongst all of these different, like dolls and bodies and whatever else. So he has to gain more power from that sort of influencer aspect. It's really the only thing that I'm thinking. So
it's as good a guess as any, honestly. I don't know that I could have produced anything better than that. I mean, yeah, it just seems like it needed to happen in order for him to inhabit more bodies. I don't know exactly why. I think maybe the corruption of pure souls allows him to spread his soul even farther. Obviously, you don't know what the correlation between those two is, but Chucky's a big voodoo fan, and who knows, maybe there's a strengthening the spreading of your souls for dummies book, which I wouldn't put past Don Mancini at this point. So
yeah, because they did have in a flashback, it was either this episode or the last one where they were driving around in the car. I think it was the last episode.
He was reading about voodoo.
Yeah, he was reading about voodoo. So you could see that it was just a reminder to
the
hobby. Audience. Yeah. It was the reminder to the audience, though, of the fact that he's knowledgeable about a lot of different aspects of this, I would imagine.
I wonder if the final flashback is going to be him. Like, I almost got the impression that him saying goodbye to Tiff here was him saying goodbye before he goes and has the confrontation in Child's Play and puts his soul into the doll. Like, I got the impression that we were going to get that scene, maybe. You know what I mean?
Are they going to... So, do you think the flashback in Episode 8 then will be...
the lead into... Yeah, like...
But do they need to recreate it?
No, because they used footage from Child's Play 2.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they would use the footage of Child's Play 1, but they would just film new stuff with Fiona Brad that they could intersplice with those moments that they showed of Brad. Because remember, he gets to the toy store, he's chased to the toy store, but they cut around a lot of it. So there could be aspects of that chase that they could film new. They just can't show Chris Sarandon. They'll just have to show the clothing of that person chasing him or whatever. So I think they totally could do it. I don't know that they're going to do that, or if they're going to be like, you know what, let's hold off and we'll make that bridge in season 2 kind of thing.
No, I wouldn't put it past them, but
Yeah.
I don't really know what else they could flash back to at this point as far ahead in the timeline, at least, the old timeline.
Well, you couldn't have guessed them getting their first classic car, could you?
It was still the most forgettable flashback that they've done, in my opinion. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm excited about the final episode, though, and I hope it does resolve some things to help us feel satisfied. But I also want them to, if there is going to be a second season, which I know they want to make one, even though it's not greenlit yet, I want them to have us, hungry for much, or are you thirsty for more, whatever the hell Kevin McAllister says. Guys, give up, or are you thirsty
for more?
Yeah, God, and that Home Sweet Home Alone was such shit. Anyway,
I didn't even bother.
Yeah, I did, because it was the kid from Jojo Rabbit.
I watched something that broke down the review. I can't remember what, but it was like, wait, these people that are just trying to save their home are the ones that are going to get shit on the whole movie? It's like, oh no. But yeah, anyway. So thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to do it for our discussion on Chucky episode 7. Let us know what your thoughts are on this episode in the comments down below. Where do you think the series is going to go? Where do you think it's going to end? Where are we going to get that cliffhanger? Because I think it's clearly we're going to get a season 2 bait sort of ending, but I would love to know your guys' thoughts. Thank you so much to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. Thank you to Fuego for rejoining me this week. I know you have been and are still going through some issues, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me, because I know the audience wants to know your thoughts on this, as well as your thoughts on Resident Evil, and quite frankly, Fuego, we might need to do a little Fuego's thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife, because I know there's people that... Have you watched it yet?
Yeah, I watched it.
All right, so good, yay or nay on that one? Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, there's a little bait for you guys.
Member berries.
Ah, yep, yeah. Hey, remember this? Remember this? Yeah, I thought so too.
A lot of that.
So, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias for your patience, everyone. I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.
Stay scared.